Hello, I'm excited and honored to be addressing you today on a topic near and dear to my heart. Thank you to the organizers, USAID, UNDP, the panelists, and participants. I would like also to acknowledge the recent International Jaguar Day 2020, which is a fitting occasion for the Big Cat and Big Opportunities Dialogue Series. First, let me tell you a story. It happened in 2006, which was my first encounter with a jaguar deep in the forest of Corcovado National Park in Costa Rica. I was patrolling with an anti-poach unit of rangers, and as I was walking into one of the trails, a tapir with a baby attacked me and left me unconscious and injured in the forest. It took me 4 days to walk myself away out of that forest. And one of the days that I was walking out, as I was backtracking my footprints, my rubber boot footprints, I saw the track of the jaguar in top of my rubber boots. A chill went through my spine as I felt that the jaguar was somewhere there looking at me, even though I was unable to look at the jaguar. I didn't saw that jaguar. I moved away from where I thought the jaguar was, and I continued to walk quickly out of that area. And I thought that I was going to be eaten by the jaguar. The jaguar followed me for the whole day. I heard him. I smelled him a couple of times, and I knew he was very curious. Probably he had never seen a human. I wondered whether my remains will be found by rescuers. This experience definitely increased both my reverence and respect for big cats, in this case for jaguars. So I have been lucky enough to have seen this magnificent big cat many times since, and to continue to work to conserve these iconic creatures and the ecosystems on which they depend. I'm proud of the recent work that has been done together to save big cats, including the recent Jaguar 2030 New York statement that outlines key priority for range countries to focus on their conservation and sustainable development efforts and encourages regional collaboration. Progress since 2010, the St. Petersburg Summit, including the GF significant contribution to cat conservation in Asia and Latin America. The GF has supported more than $200 million in projects that has been contributing to the conservation of big cats in nearly 20 countries over the last decade, and we will continue supporting efforts in many other countries, as well as the current effort through the wildlife program that has built on protecting this key wildlife habitat, combating poaching and trafficking, and building wildlife-based economies. And finally, the recent inclusion of the jaguar in the appendices of the Convention on Migratory Species that marks a new stage in conservation efforts in my region. I'm not going to paint a rosy picture, but nevertheless, the current status and threats of big cats population in the wild are grim, with all 7 species of big cats listed in the threatened or near threatened species on the red list species, with the tiger being the most endangered one. This tells us that we should have done it not been enough, and we need to reinforce our commitment to work closer with governments. Well, at first glance, they shouldn't and wouldn't give critical competing priorities and status quo incentives driving the loss of nature. As a former Minister of Environment and Energy, every day I had to battle over limited financial resources for new legislation with other ministers who were fighting illiteracy, poverty, poor health care. And now the pandemic has only intensified this battle. But it doesn't have to. If we are to succeed, we have to sell the conservation of nature, not only in terms of what we're losing, but in terms of what we gain by having healthy, intact ecosystem, preferably in economic and social terms, such as wealth and job and protection from natural disasters. As we know, big cats are an indicator of the health of ecosystem. If we save these apex predators and their habitat, we have a better chance of saving ourselves. The conservation of big cats and their habitat is in our own best interest and will safeguard ecosystems, goods, and services, buffer us from the worst impact of climate change, and help us to adapt and reduce the risk of next zoonotic spillover and possibly the next big pandemic. Recent studies have shown the cost of needed action to prevent zoonotic spillover is in many ways an order of magnitude less than what this pandemic will ultimately cost us. So how can the conservation of big cats in their habitat fit into countries' effort to build back greener? Well, that's a great question. I think that this is the topic of this dialogue series, and it is the right question to ask ourselves. The same forces and unsustainable economic model that provide the origin of this catastrophic pandemic are pushing big cats to the brink. We will not be able to build back greener if we perpetuate the same wasteful economic model, the same stone pipe governance approach, and the same charity-based conservation sector. We must break down the institutional and government silos that perpetuate and support the current economic take, make, and waste model. Countries must integrate ministerial portfolios, improve and enhance national policies and legal framework, and support regional cooperation. This is especially important in the case of big cats that are known to traverse wide areas and cross national borders in search of prey and mate. We need to eliminate subsidies that are fueling the loss of nature and climate change, and strive for policy coherence across governments so the left and the right hands work together rather than as cross purposes. We also must fill the significant resource gap and change the profile of resources for conservation. There is a great potential to increase efficiency in national domestic resource mobilization. Countries need to understand that investing in nature is as much in their self-interest as spending on education and healthcare, and allocate domestic resources accordingly. National governments must make the management of their natural capital central to their policy framework, economic planning, and most important, public expenditures. The GF funding, around $1 billion per year, is tiny compared to the scale of what is needed. If we are to succeed, we must increase our resources and keep working with and leveraging other financiers, including those from the private sector. In addition, we must do all we can do to trigger national decisions that optimize the efficient investment of public expenditures. In conclusion, if we are able to protect our big cats and live in harmony with these populations in the incoming decades, this will mean we have been able to successfully halt illegal killing and trade of these magnificent creatures and protect both the quality and extent of the ecosystems on which they depend, the same ecosystems on which we ultimately depend. In a year where we as a global community have lost so much, we have now a unique chance to come together to recover from this crisis, conserve our natural world, and hence ensure the well-being of our population and generations to come. Thank you so much.